Welcome to the regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic Commission. I'd like to take a moment to explain the order of the meeting, specifically as it relates to the hearing of the applications on tonight's agenda. Each case will be called, and we'll first hear the staff presentation and recommendations. Following this, the commissioners who served on the review committee will present their observations and recommendations. At this point, the applicant will have an opportunity to step forward and provide any comments or additional information about the application. Once the applicant has finished, members of the public who wish to provide comments on the current case may do so, while please noting the time limit of 3 minutes per person. Everyone who steps forward will need to state their name aloud for the record and limit their comments to the application at hand. Following any public comment, the applicant may be called back to the podium to review any public comments and answer any questions that the commission may have. Once all questions have been answered, the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate the application, make a motion, have a discussion, and then vote. If any members of the public would like to speak to the general preservation topics and not to any specific application, opportunity is provided during the audience participation public commentary following the approval of the agenda. Everyone who would like to address the commission may do so and will be asked to state their name aloud for the record and sign in at the front podium. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Your comments are valuable to the commission. I would like to now introduce the commissioners. To my left, we have Commissioner Evan Hall. Here. David Rockland. Jessica Quijano. Robert White. And Anna Epperson. I now call the March 8th, 2018 regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission to order. Roll call, Ms. Thatcher.
Commissioner Beeson, Commissioner Cope.
Here.
Commissioner Epperson.
Here.
Commissioner Hall.
Here.
Commissioner Quijano.
Here.
Commissioner Rockland.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
None from me.
Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved as presented. Do we have any members of the public who would like to come forward and speak for the record? Please state your name aloud.
George Taylor, Cobblestone Farm Association President. I just want to tell the commission that things are looking up at the farm. I will give my annual report next month, but I want to apprise you of some of the things that are going on. We have ceased our caretaker. The space where the caretaker was living has been completely rehabbed. It is now our main office to the tune of about $11,000 worth of work the city has done. And we've moved into that new office. With the projects at Cobblestone Farm, one of the projects is putting an exterior staircase on the back end of the barn, basically for caterers work. That's progressing. They were there working today. They hope to have that project done by the end of March, or by the end of beginning of April. They are going to move back to the farmhouse after that project is done and replace both the east porch and the west porch on the kitchenelle. I'm sure in sad shape. And that will be done by the city. We proposed a external staircase in the woodshed, which is the area north of the kitchen. There's a door that exits the caretaker's apartment, but at this present time, the fire escape is a ladder you have to crawl out of and crawl down. And since that's now become our office, it's more of a real hassle with people who are in the office. So our resident architect, Scott Deals, has provided the city with a plan to build an external staircase within the confines of the woodshed. I've been told that by the city that that's supposed to be done by the end of May. That'll be done along with the porches on either side of the house. Like I say, a lot of extensive work was done to the caretaker's apartment that even required the use of dust masks for the guys to pull up the old carpet. They bleached everything out. They've laid new carpet and new flooring, worked on the bathrooms. Last fall we had a water heater that broke up in the caretaker's apartment, which trashed the ceiling. That's all been done. So things are looking up at Cobblestone Farm, and you're more than welcome to come out and visit. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Any commissioners have any questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, George.
Thank you, George. We appreciate it.
Thank you, George, for the report.
Do we have any unfinished business that the commission needs to address? Being that there's no unfinished business to address, we'll move on to hearings. We'll move on to item F1, 536 6th Street, two-story rear addition in the Old West Side.
The commissioners.
Edition, I guess.
No.
Oh, sorry,
Cut and paste.
that was last month.
Cut and
I'm
paste.
sorry.
It's okay.
616 West Madison Street, in the Old West Side Historic District, for a garage.
So commissioners, if your screen resolution, if the, what's that called, the aspect is driving you crazy, turn around and look at the big ones because they look a lot better. Everything is square on your screens and everything is normal on the big TVs. So just a tip if it bugs you. Things aren't as tall and skinny as they look. So this 1.5-story Craftsman house features a wide front porch, wide battered columns, full-width shed dormers on the front and rear elevations, knee brackets, and wood shingle and stucco walls. House first appears in the 1923 city directory as the residence of Ernest Dieterle, a laborer, and his wife Ruth. In 2012, the HDC approved replacement of several basement windows and walls, expanding a rear porch and enclosing a rear porch, moving 2 original windows and related work. Sites on the corner of West Madison and 5th Street. The applicant is seeking HDC approval to remove a curb cut and half of an existing driveway off of West Madison, to construct a new garage and driveway off of 5th Street, and to install a new fence and connect the garage and house with a patio, stairs, and stoop. So here's the house at the corner of Madison, and this is 5th on the side. Has a white picket fence around the 5th Street side. You can see where the driveway curb cut is here. It's one wide curb cut, but there are 2 distinct driveways. There's a low retaining wall that you'll see in a second that divides the 2. Here's another view of that driveway. So when you're looking at this, one of the things that the homeowners would like to do is get rid of the pavement from roughly the front of the house up to the street. Then the sidewalk would just go straight across here. The curb would be closed. This curb cut would be closed, and it would only remain for this half, so it would become essentially half as wide. Grass would go here on the lawn extension and in the front yard, and then there would be the back half of this almost brand new concrete driveway would become more of a patio space. When you're looking at this photo, note these 2 trees. The one in the back corner of the lot is large, and the one right at the end of the driveway is even larger. And one of the things that the homeowners explored was to simply extend the driveway straight back and put a garage in the back corner there. But they really didn't want to lose that tree, and I don't blame them. It's a gorgeous tree. Also, backing out onto West Madison can get a little hairy. Traffic moves kind of faster, even though there's a stop sign. And I'll show you some more information in just a sec. So imagine, all of this back is lawn again, and then patio on the back. This is the side door. This is the door that they say they anticipate using the most in the winter. Here's a view from the middle of the backyard, looking at the back of the house. Driveway's over here. There's the big tree. There's a little bit of fence here. This existing deck would go, and these stairs and this stoop would be widened basically to the width of this little bump out on the back here. This was some of that new work approved in 2012. That just gives people coming in this door some maneuvering room to set their stuff down while they get the door open. And new patio area would go where the deck is right now. There's a little piece of white picket fence here I'll get to in a second. This is a view of the backyard. You can see even from these photos that it is a gradual decline as you go north on this lot. And pretty much the edge of the deck here would be the southern extent of the new garage. And see, I'm not sure if it's where Jess is standing right now, but it's pretty close to there is where the front would be. New driveway would be cut off of 5th Street. 2 big street trees that we want to avoid at all costs, but there's enough room to get a 10-foot driveway in with a new curb cut, and that would go where this piece of fence is. This bit of fence here is proposed to move forward. It could go as close as 25 feet from the corner because there's a rule about height at corners. You have to be a certain height, something like 3 feet or 30 inches tall. And they expressed an interest in just matching the existing fence, running it forward as far as they can until they hit the 25 foot, and then basically moving this piece of fence to that. So it's just pushing the enclosure up a little bit. So very interesting. Here's the 1931 Sanborn. You can see that there are 3 houses. This is the house we're talking about. There are 3 houses and 2 garages, which are signified by the letter A for automobile, on one lot. And that would be these 3 lots here. This is a 1947 aerial. Very clearly you can see that the driveway used to be off 5th Street, just where they want to put it back. And there used to be a garage back here. It's probably this one here. It's a pretty good sized garage. I'd call it a medium size, like a car and a half garage. This is a little dinky 1-car one. That's probably this one right over here. But there was no curb cut here to begin with. Actually, I take that back. I'm not sure. This one may have still had a driveway up there. But yeah, I think this was just a walkway. From looking at other aerials, you could see that there was just a paved path going back. But this is pretty clearly where they've been getting their cars in and out in this photograph. So, good news is there used to be a pretty big garage back here, and there used to be a driveway back here right where they'd like to put it. So the proposal is what I was talking about earlier, taking out this piece of concrete and putting in grass, closing their half of this curb cut, moving a piece of fence up here to the front and extending the picket fence along 5th Street. The new patio old driveway would also have fence across the front here with a gate. In the back, we've got a 10-foot wide curb cut, which flares out to a 16-foot wide concrete driveway, and a 2-car garage that's big enough to get 2 cars into without being a luxurious size, and deep enough to put stairs up to the upstairs. New patio is proposed in between here where that current deck is. This is the extended stoop, a little bit wider than it is now, a little bit wider stairs, and then there'll be a couple of stairs going up this way. So again, this piece is higher, it's sloping down toward the back, so those will be some stairs down to the patio. And notice how they are trying to pull the garage away from this tree to the extent possible. Meets all zoning requirements. The garage walls will have to be fire rated. That's all indicated on the plans. but while still remaining deep enough that you can pull a car 20 feet. You can pull a car completely off of the sidewalk and actually park in the driveway without hanging over and risking getting a ticket. So here's a rendering showing the house, the new garage here in the back. You can see that it's 1.5 stories, cars below, and a storage room on the top. New stairs going down. Oh, there's a piece of privacy fence that I failed to mention over here on the side. On the application, it says, I think it says wood or vinyl to be determined, but I did, in the motion, I conditioned it on the use of wood, since we typically don't find vinyl to be an appropriate finishing for a fence. So that's that little piece of privacy fence in the back there. Big tree, not quite so big tree. There's still a decent amount of open space between the house and the garage. This house has had very few alterations. This little bump out on the back that you saw before, that with the back door going into it, is a former porch that was enclosed, and that's really the only addition or major alteration, except for those new basement walls, and the new basement walls have some new windows in them as well. East elevation and north elevation, there are no windows in these elevations. You can see that the cladding is a cementitious shingle shake. The house is, let me go back. The house, you can see, is shakes on the top and on the front porch, and stucco on the lower level on 3 sides. So that is compatible without matching exactly. The it's basically a 2-story structure with this gable trim applied to mimic the shed roof dormers on the top, which is fine because it does the job. Let me get here. The windows are aluminum clad. They are divided on the top but not on the bottom, but these windows are proposed to be 3/1, and there are no 3/1s on the house. They're all 4/1s. There are some 3s, but they're just a square. They're not 2 sashes. Overhead door, roll-up door. There's a person door here. This is the side, the south elevation. This faces the house. This faces 5th Street. It's pretty straightforward. They've not added the brackets to the eaves to further distinguish it. I guess those would be on here somewhere to further distinguish it from the house. The windows are different proportions. So it's a pretty close match, but it's distinct from the historic materials and proportions. Here's the garage. You can get a couple cars in here. Enough room for a lawnmower and some bikes. 2nd floor, lots of nice storage. You can see again that the windows are only on the side facing the house and facing 5th Street. Let me see if I missed anything. The footprint of the garage is 24 by 21. The garage height is 21 feet to the ridge. And staff does believe that that height is compatible with the existing house, and that this massing is secondary to the original house. And it doesn't look like a house. It looks like a garage with a finished room over the top with some shed roof dormers. The new patio is labeled final size material to be determined. In the motion, I threw a condition in that a concrete or paver patio can't exceed the footprint shown on the site plan. And from the Secretary of Interior, the standards that best apply are 2, 9, and 10. And number 2 says that the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. Removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. From the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for building site, recommended is designing new exterior additions or adjacent new construction, which is compatible with the historic character of the site which preserve the historic relationship between a building or buildings, landscape features, and open space. Also from the recommendations, the guidelines for building site, it's recommended to retain the historic relationship between buildings, landscape features, and open space. From the guidelines for district or neighborhood setting, not recommended is introducing new construction into historic districts that's visually incompatible or that destroys historic relationships within the setting. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for residential accessory structures, not recommended is introducing new structures or site features that are out of scale with the property or the district or otherwise inappropriate. Staff does recommend approval of the application. The proposed garage is well suited to the lot, and the design, materials, and location are compatible with the historic home and do not distract from it or neighboring historic resources. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hatcher. Commissioners Quijano and Rockland were on the review committee. Could you please give us your report and any recommendations?
Sure. Let's see. Well, some of the items that stood out right when we got to the site, at least from my view, was the note about the proximity of the current driveway to not only the neighbor's driveway, which are immediately adjacent, and how close it is to that intersection and the stop sign, and that for the surrounding neighborhood and the homeowner just seemed quite difficult of a situation. And there being historic precedent of such a sizable garage and the driveway off of Fifth, it makes a lot of sense there. I was concerned at first about the overall massing proposed for the garage. The slope of the site does in fact help in the favor of the applicant. And I don't know if we have a photo of the two properties down, Jill, the red. Oh, yeah, you can sort of, okay, so the red home that we see in the background, they also have a sizable garage. I think it's only one story, but it does have a gable roof. And the setback proposed from Fifth for the applicant's garage is kind of in alignment with, or kind of averaging out with the setback of the homes along Fifth, and that isn't too out of place with the red home's garage. And Commissioner Rockland may speak about this. He brought up, we discussed a little bit about the existing fencing on the site. There's currently on the north and east sides, there's a chain link fence, which, it's up to the applicant's discretion. It's not, I don't think it's part of this application, but discussion about that and the privacy fence that they're proposing and the placement of the garage itself, and confirming who owns what with the fence. I think that's all I have to add.
Okay, well, I also agree with the staff report and with Commissioner Quijano on the report. A couple things to note further, I would say, is if this is a decent view here, that I think that the grade of the site slopes more than the drawing shows. The front elevation of the garage, side elevation of the house. In the staff report, there's a picture of the existing back deck, and you can see like this here. Like the deck has some depth to it, and grade drops below the deck quite a bit, maybe another foot. So that's at least 1.5 feet, and then maybe it's 2 feet fully from like the bottom of the existing stairs to the edge of the property line. And so it's just a question of where are they gonna, like obviously the garage is gonna be level. the patio next to the garage will probably be level. So where are they going to create that level surface? It might even be lower. I'm guessing they'd have to build up the grade to bring it to this level. I'm guessing it will be lower than this level, which will help with the massing. But it will just mean that they're gonna need like 2 or 3 more stairs to get down to that level patio. So I think this is close to what will actually be built. It's possible too that if massing is the issue maybe that you're thinking in your mind, it would be better if it's lower. So I think it probably will be, but we can't really be sure. I don't think with these drawings. And I guess just speaking of massing, like, you know, for additions, we have like that 50% sort of standard that we can judge by. I think this is based on zoning, where it's like a percentage of your backyard area is the size, your square footage that you're allowed to build. You know, it's hard to imagine when you're on the site, but it felt like it would be acceptable, like, you know, size-wise, but maybe it is gonna feel like something, like almost another house is there, based on the width, and just like the width of the other homes that are on that block on 5th. There's a house in the property right next to it that's built way back, like way back on the property, and so there's nothing right next to it. So it's a little odd though. You really, when you're coming by on 5th, you're expecting to see houses there, and if anything, it's just gonna like fill in where you're expecting to see something, because there's nothing there because of, can you see it there, Jill? Is it?
Yeah, it's this way.
Yeah, that's still there, way back there, and there's nothing in front of it. In terms of differentiation, I think sort of like the massing, it's like maybe just on the edge of acceptable. Like they did they mimicked some things about the house, but it is done in such a way that it's certainly acceptable based on the standards. I appreciate the work they did in the design to save the trees on the site, and I agree with just the major benefit of moving the driveway curb cut from that close to the intersection on a busy street over to the side street on 5th. That's my report.
All right, thank you, commissioners. Would the applicant please come forward, provide your name for the record, and if you have anything to add to the staff report review committee?
Sure,
please do.
good evening. Mike Weinhold and Maureen Weinhold.
Hello.
Hi.
We certainly appreciate the time and the thoroughness. I think Jill did an excellent job of describing the project. And it's not often that you stand on a pristine driveway, which that is a pristine driveway. It's perfectly level. There's no cracks. I think it's not even a year plus old. And you stare at a big tree right at the end of it. And so we were trying to accomplish, and I think all the points that were brought up were spot on, as we thought, obviously, the first and foremost is to have the use of a garage. It would be nice having just gone through a winter. I grew up here on the northeast side. I moved away after school, just came back in June, and we spent, well, actually before that, looking for housing, which is a real treat. When you come back to Ann Arbor, we were kind of at a state of shock at how fast the properties were being snapped up. We actually lived downtown in Ann Arbor City Center, so we could be close to where we thought we wanted to find a home. So we were thrilled when we finally got a hold of this, but it has its challenges, and part of it was the size. We have a lot of stuff, unfortunately, so where you put that stuff. Part of the purpose of the garage was the storage up above. It certainly was not our intent, nor will it be our intent to have living space up there. We have older kids that are just finishing school. I'm sure they were eyeballing it at first when we were doing designs. We do not need the kids coming back to live above the garage, so that is not the intent. But we're also mindful of our responsibility relative to being a corner lot, and I think some of the comments that were made are spot on. That's a great picture. If you take a look at that picture and the design we've put up there, you're really not going to see a lot of the garage from the front on Madison. You'll see the front of the house. When you go down 5th, we were trying to make it appealing from that perspective because if the garage were flipped the other way, you'd see the side of the garage going down Fifth. The way we've kind of flipped it back, you see, in essence, one of the comments made, like a smaller house filling in that space. So that was kind of first and foremost on our mind, but the main point was trying not to take down those large trees. And so we think we've got it, and I also agree with some of the comments relative to the slope of the yard. I do believe, and it will be our intent, is to have the garage down and level at the bottom of the slope, and I think you're right. From that point on, they'll have to grade it, the patio, and the stairs probably will extend down a little bit. That's why we're showing stairs going back up to that old driveway, because there will be probably a 2-foot, I would believe, incline back to the driveway. It's not ideal. Ideally, you would be able to have that driveway extended out, put a garage down there, and call it a day, but it's just not going to work that way, and we think this is a very good alternative, and getting off of Madison from just moving cars in and out is going to be spectacular, because there is a stop sign there, but I'll tell you, it's more of a,
Slow.
yeah, it's a guideline, not a rule for sure. So there's a lot of traffic going back and forth at that intersection.
And buses as well.
Yeah, and people generally don't want to let you out even when you're backing up. So it takes a little patience.
Or aggressiveness. Just go.
But we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Yep, I don't really have any questions on this application. I do think you guys have a great thing going in your favor with the historic photographs, and there originally being a garage there. I think as proposed, it might be a little bit tougher to meet all the, the historic guidelines for this, cutting in a new curb and creating a new space, but originally that's where it was.
Right.
So it's almost nice that you're putting the neighborhood back to what it was historically.
Yeah, we were thrilled when we saw that.
I'm sure.
Yeah, there was no real history from the previous owner.
Although we were told by the neighbors there was a curb cut there up until about a year or so ago when they came, I guess, and redid the streets.
Yeah, they redid Madison.
Yeah.
2 or 3
So we were
years
a
ago.
couple of years late, or might have saved a little money.
And I think it's typical for that neighborhood too, on some of the corner lots, that you see the curb cut in the garage on the adjacent street.
Yeah,
I know
actually several of
Third
the
in
neighbors-
Madison has a home similar to that.
Several of the neighbors directly across from us, they have their driveway on Fifth. But their front of their house faces Madison.
Oh, that's true.
It is, yeah, a little craftsman.
Hmm? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Moving on, from the public hearing, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? No, thank you. Would the applicant like to review any comments? No comments? Commissioners, do you have any additional questions?
No.
I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. The applicant may be seated. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Quijano?
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 616 West Madison Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to remove a curb cut and half of an existing driveway off West Madison, construct a new garage and driveway off Fifth Street, install a new fence, and connect the garage and house with a new patio, stairs, and stoop on the following conditions. All fences must be wood. The patio must be concrete or pavers and not exceed the footprint shown on the site plan. And the rear stoop must match the design of the existing or be approved by staff. As conditioned, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the house and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for building site and neighborhood, as well as the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines particularly as they pertain to the residential accessory structures.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner White. Is there a discussion on the motion? Although, well, I guess we would call to a vote. All those in favor, say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
The motion does carry. Your application has been approved, and you will receive written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. Thank you, guys.
Well done.
All right, on to new business. Is there any new business?
There is, but I would like to delay the discussion of metal roofing. Rather than giving you a quick, half-baked topic of discussion today, I realize that we don't have a lot that we've been talking about doing at the annual retreat. So I'd like to move that metal roofing discussion to the annual retreat, which is an appropriate place for it. And the person who was bugging me for more information on metal roofing is going with an asphalt roof, so pressure's off.
All right.
But I would still like to have that discussion because it comes up once in a while, and it's about when and if it would ever be appropriate to be on the staff approvals list.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher.
And then G2, the annual retreat schedule and planning. Everyone pull out your calendars. We typically meet on a Saturday morning in March or April. When you get into May, nobody wants to meet on a Saturday morning because it's lovely outside. So we ought to pick a Saturday when you're available from, let's say, 9 to noon. And once we find a date that we can live with, I will be out of town for school spring break the last week in March. So that won't work very well.
Will the 31st, will you be back on that date?
No, I will be in
Okay.
St. Louis, Missouri on that day. So how about,
That kicks me into April.
okay?
That kicks me into April as well.
Me too. Saturday, April 7th is my birthday.
I'll bring cupcakes.
Yeah, we'll bring trips.
Give us another date.
I would be willing to spend the morning with you guys because birthdays are about night times. So Saturday, the 7th, or the next Saturday is the 14th.
I'm out of town.
I'm out of town as well.
For the 14th?
Yeah.
For the 7th?
14.
14th.
The 21st would be my first available.
Okay, that's your,
I'm out of town that weekend.
okay, we're not doing the 21st.
about the
28th. 28th.
April 28th,
April 28th?
everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, our annual meeting will be scheduled for April 28th.
April 28th. So it will be, count on 9 to noon. And if you have an opinion about where it should be, let me know. Historically, it travels between Cobblestone Farm, the Gallup Park Meeting Room, with a view of the river,
Ann Arbor
the Ann Arbor
Senior
Senior Center.
I like Ann Arbor Senior Center.
Yep, that's a good one.
Something that has heat. That's a little bit better this time.
Used to be a horse barn.
The senior center.
Yeah, no longer resembles a horse barn, but used to be one.
Okay.
That's where we were last year.
No, we were at the Senior Center.
Oh, we were? Okay.
Ann Arbor Senior Center.
You guys all good with that? I'm going with it if it's available.
I'm good.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I promise I won't go to the woods that weekend.
So I'll confirm that with you all, once I make sure it's available.
Where we're going?
Yep.
Where? Where did you say we're going?
We're going to the senior center, but I have to confirm it
Oh, I
with
see.
them.
Okay.
So I will send you an email.
Sounds good.
Okay, that's it for new business.
On the 28th.
Thanks. 28, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. On to Section 8 of our agenda, approval of minutes.
Yeah, you have 2 new sets of minutes.
I thought I saw something that was.
The
odd,
November
but now I can't find
meeting
it.
and December meeting.
That's any correction.
Are there any
No, that-
corrections to the minutes?
Yeah, you weren't here. No, it was something with your name, Dave, actually. But I thought. What did we?
9 a.m.
Without objection, I move to.
Wait 1 minute, there might be an
Wait,
objection.
I don't know where I said that.
There's a glitch that they're trying to find.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, David Beeson, is that what you're?
Yeah, which one is that? Where is
David
that?
Beeson.
It's fine.
Okay.
Is that
Is it November or December?
No, December.
14th?
First page.
How do we know who that is?
Yeah.
Catch,
Well, David
Jess.
Rockland, do you remember saying whatever that says?
Were you elected?
December 14.
I
See,
don't see what
that's-
you're saying.
That's not right. I certainly wasn't elected to the, as HGC chairperson, was I?
Oh, that was
No.
John.
That
That's
sounds
John
more
Beeson.
like John.
Yeah. Not David Beeson.
Okay. All right, minutes, page 1, December 14, should say John Beeson instead of David Beeson under item E1. Got it,
Good one, Jess.
yeah.
Thank you, Jess.
You're welcome.
There are no other objections to the December 14th minutes. They be approved. November 16th meeting, are there any objections to the minutes? We'll move on. Meeting minutes from November and December are approved as is, or with the notation. Any reports from commissioners this month? Anything going on in the room?
Nothing I have.
I was going to touch a little bit tonight on the Cobblestone Farm progress that they've had. It seems that there is a lot of progress going on at the building, and the farm is, getting ready for, the wedding season. So if anybody out there is watching, is ready for weddings or looking for a space, it is a great venue. We're going to try this year to increase membership through the community, using Facebook and a little bit more modern communications with people. If anybody's watching and hasn't been there, it's an amazing space to see. Walking back in time is something you don't get to do very often in these days. So that'd be my report for my small report. All right, on to J, assignments for next month's.
I volunteer for the review committee.
All right.
It's on, it's
Thank you,
5
Rob.
o'clock.
Yep,
Is that
5
correct?
o'clock on Monday, April 9.
Monday,
11 to
April
5.
9th. Mr. White, thank you. Anybody else? I unfortunately will not be present for that meeting
Ditto.
in April.
Well, I'll have to
Oh,
do
does
the
that
heavy
leave enough?
lifting.
I could potentially do the review committee.
And we can touch base with Commissioner Beeson as well when he's back in town.
We'll put you down, Evan.
That's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Evan. And K, reports from staff.
Staff activities report is in your packet. The only thing that I want to call out on here is HDC 18020. There's a house at the corner of East Kingsley and North Division where they received a staff approval to replace 14 existing vinyl windows with the same. And they were supposed to not touch the 10 wood windows on the house. Contractor started work without any permits, or we would have caught that they were intending to do that. And the Catholic Social Services is the owner. They got the HDC approval. The contractor who was responsible for getting a permit never did, and took out 5 wood windows. 3 of them are still on the site and will be reinstalled. and 2 other windows were destroyed in removal and ended up in a dumpster somewhere. So the good thing is they can probably use the one, it was 2 small casement windows and 3 large double hungs. Since they have one of the double hungs left that they're reinstalling, they'll be able to use that as a template to replicate that for the other 2 windows that
So
they
we are
took out.
making them replicate.
Yes, they're going to
Good.
replicate, and I still haven't determined yet. Once I get an application in, I'll get with the officers to see if they have to apply to the commission, which normally people would have to do, but it's kind of obvious what the result's gonna be, so we'll talk about that, or if it'll be a staff approval. So that's a little bit of a mess right now, and if you go by, it looks like a little bit of mess.
Okay.
But
Okay.
there are some windows installed that will be removed and replaced with the wood windows right now if you go by.
Did they eventually get a permit? Is that how we found out about it?
They haven't got a permit yet because they haven't told me how they're going to reinstall the old windows and what they're going to install for the 2 wood replacement windows. But
Is it
they're going to.
Is it an occupied building?
Yeah, of course. It's gonna have some boards over a few windows for a little while.
I hope he has insurance.
And I hope they're not egress windows
Yeah.
required.
So how does that come to the attention of the Historic District Commission? I mean, is that,
6 neighbors.
Yeah, neighbors.
contacted me.
thank you, neighbors.
Yeah.
The neighbors
Yeah,
are,
they're out, they're out,
they're
they're all
they're on the
great.
Yeah.
case,
Right.
yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
unfortunately, they started the work, I think, on a Friday, and the neighbors started contacting me on a Saturday, so they worked for a couple of days before I could get a hold of them on Monday morning at 7:30 when I saw my flood of messages. But, yeah. The contractor knows he did wrong,
Okay, cool. Lesson learned.
hopefully, hopefully.
I learned my lesson once too, so.
That's it
Uh,
for me.
All right.
Do you have any questions about the staff approval?
I have no questions.
Okay.
On to concerns of commissioners. Concerns?
No.
We will move on. Communications?
Nope.
All right, I move to adjourn the March 8th monthly meeting of,
Without objection.
without objection, of the Ann Arbor Historic Commission.
Well done.
This is the